that again. Yet the heart of it was this part of an aspect of what I call authenticity, which has to do with this spontaneity, this ability to respond appropriately to the moment in just the right way, having no idea what's going to happen next. And there was something pure in that way, and messy in that way, and grungy in that way. And because we were a group of guys, I mean, there was a period of time where I was just doing arates, and I wasn't working just with men. And then I started working just with men again. I was just like, oh, God, this is home for me. Because, like, with men, man, you can just say, hey, motherfucker, wake the fuck up. Like, where the fuck are you? And the guy's like, oh. You do that with a woman, and you won't get the same impact or the same results. And then there's the thing that I realized, and I've come to realize, and the men's circle is a perfect example of this. There came a point where my attention and Jerry's attention, we needed to become very selective about where we put our attention on. And it got clear that we were no longer going to be the space to hold the circle. And we would sometimes have, between 5 guys and 10 and 20 guys show up on the beach. I think maybe the most we ever had was like 25. But the essence of it was we started a fire, and whatever was going to happen was what was going to happen. And we had no idea what that was. And there was something so authentic about that. Yet, what I'm about to tell you is the difference that has made the difference for me of this being an art that keeps developing is that when we came and we officially said, we are done with the circle, it's over. A few men were inspired to step in that knew how to do this stuff that Jerry and I were not very good at, called structure, called making commitments, building structure. And now there's what? How many men?
Say around 100.
Around 100?
Yeah.
It's like over 100 or something like that, right? East Bay, from what I understand, you guys are organized. You petitioned out on the beach and got the fire pits, and you wrote stuff and dealt with legislation and did all that kind of stuff. This has to do with structure. This has to do with measurements. This has to do with time and commitments and all of those kinds of things that are predictable. And notice that it went from 5 to 20 guys showing up every on the beach for 2 or 3 years, however long we did it, to now 100 and growing. There's another aspect of authenticity that was the difference, that made the difference between it growing and expanding and it dying in that moment. Now this is where I really want to bring it back to you. It's the beginning of a new year, 2010, coming up. What the fuck are you going to do this year? Is this going to be the year? Is this going to be the year? Have you been living? Do you know what's going to happen this year? Do you have any idea? Do you have a plan? Do you know what you're going to do next week? Do you know how much money you're planning on making in a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years ago? Do you have a plan? Do you know where you're going, what you're up to? Are you behind it? Those questions, I'm realizing, okay, those questions are the kinds of questions that actually are the structure in which, if that isn't in place, just like with the men's circle, until there was a structure in place, the beauty of the men's circle and everything, in every way it's contributed to you in your life, and I've been talking with a lot of you, and the level of depth that is contributed to is huge. Until there was a structure in place, that level of authenticity and depth wasn't possible at a greater level. Now bring that back down into your life. Think about what you love and when you're the most, what you call, authentic and real. I mean, for me, it's when I'm circling, or I'm in a conversation where we're facing each other, sitting down, eye to eye, thou to thou, and we're totally, time and space disappears, and all that's going on is you and I in this conversation, getting our motherfucking lives out of this conversation. I disappear, you disappear, and all that's happening is right here, right now, in this realness and this depth. Man, I fucking live for those moments. And we're sitting in a chair. We're in a room. It all costs money. The room, we're paying mortgage on this. That there's a structure in place that when my shit's together, I'm able to totally sit down and be myself with you in that moment. When my shit's not together, right? When I'm in debt, or like all of that stuff's not worked out, or I don't have a plan. What happens to my level of presence? Well, first of all, like if I'm spending time having those conversations when that stuff's not together, something's off for me. Yeah, when everything, I got a plan, I'm going forward, I got money in the bank, things are handled, things are taken care of, that's when I have the freedom to totally and completely be there. Now, here's the other side of it. What does it take to create that? When Pava, and I don't remember who it was that stepped up when Jerry and I said, the circle's done with. The men that stepped up said, there's something fucking here that I want to keep going. And what did they do? They started to create structures and plans and standards, right? They started to create this container that ended up having the whole circle expand, right? Beyond what they were even imagining. In that moment, when I remember Papa specifically. He stepped up and was inspired, and like the look in his eyes was deep. And for him in that moment, this is my interpretation of Papa, but you can ask him for yourself. I looked at his eyes, and there was a depth of authenticity and realness in which he brought to bear on bringing that structure into place. Like, he was no different in that moment than he is when he's looking at you and like you're getting your life out of this conversation with him. He was like that, about creating those standards, about creating those structures.